Hello, hello. Welcome back. We're going to be working on haunts. So we still have a failing test. The wall texture test is trying to load a cobweb texture, and the result that we get out seems to be backwards from what we would expect. So this is kind of the expected value, and this is the generated value. Now there's two things wrong with this. One is that it's flipped, and the other is that it's not transparent. Like, these black pixels here are opaque. So let's edit this. Loaded texture is opaque. So hopefully that updates on my little to-do thing. Yeah. So let's look at the test. House wall texture test .go. So, looking at this test, should look like file. Are we sure that this does what we actually think it does? We can probably have a test for that. Let's go to glob. Last time I think we added a test that was already green. Is black. Red has to be 0, G has to be 0, blue has to be 0, and then alpha has to be opaque. And then for a transparent pixel, I don't care what the color is, as long as alpha is 0, it's transparent, if and only if alpha is 0. Red has to be 16-bit of 1s. Green has to be 0, blue has to be 0, and alpha has to be opaque. Yeah. So let's remember that we want a add a test that, what was it, that should look like file. Is correct. RE opacity and horizontal, vertical, and symmetries, and horizontal, vertical symmetry. Yeah. So I don't want to forget to do that. So I write it down. Yeah. So should we commit this test that we just added? It's green, right? Let's commit it and then work on making it look less bad. Test. Check that we can load a checkerboard pattern as a texture. It wasn't really TDD, right? Because we didn't add a red test. But that's fine. So right now we're going to refactor. There's like some constants here that I need to, well, I want to extract. Maybe like a full pixel. If A is equal to, how do I want this to read? If A is equal to max uint 16. Now that might already be defined somewhere in some like stood numerics kind of spot. I think that's okay for now. Do we have other places where OXFF shows up? What about the like decimal version of that? Yeah. Let's not define that there. Let's not move this to somewhere that both places can reference it. The reason this is max uint 16 is different from the reason that that's max uint 16. Okay. Clean extract constant value. Oh, question. Is CI green? Ugh. Yes. CI is green. Hooray! Let's keep it that way. Do we have tests for render test? Who tests the tests? So should look like file is written as a convey assertion, or yeah, which means it returns the empty string on success, and it returns an error message on failure. We'll probably add it here for the new test. But I want to take a look at another look at this test. See if there's any more refactoring to do to clean up. So we should be able to dump a texture to an image object. Right now I'm looking at this and saying, oh, this has to happen on the render thread, but there's nothing in this API that tells you that. I mean, maybe that it's returning a GL texture, but that shouldn't be the kind of proof. With GL, maybe you ought to take a function that takes a parameter that gives you like access to the debug gubbins. The like more verbose one does that by way of giving you all the things, like the reference to the system and the reference to the render queue interface. We should probably actually flip these. I saw a comment the other day in some Golang code about we iterate the Y in the outer loop so that the typical layout in memory means we'll have better cache behavior, cache interaction. I'm looking at this, and it's like, should look like file, should be correct. And this is kind of the I'm looking at this and it's testing that we loaded it properly too. We should be able to dump this as bytes buffer, decode it, and then do like a Golang image comparison against checker 0 pin. This like computing that we've got each pixel correct is really more about, is this dumping it correctly? Coupled with, is this loading it correctly? So like this test should go in here, and then we'll just do like a open checker 0 pin and do an image comparison. Okay, so really we need a test for given a texture is correct. Is it? It's a debug. What the heck? This is some code that should be similar to some stuff we have in Haunts, right? Like, I hate how this is organized. Every time I see this, I say I hate how it's organized. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna say, let's use our testing to pick apart what should and shouldn't be happening where. Let's do this first. Should look like file. Should have the test. Let's make sure there is one. Should look like file. It's called here. And in other tests, but this is the real test of should look like file. So pings against pings. Yeah. So this is really like exploratory. I'm asking the question. Like I'm thinking like, what stage of TDD are we in? We don't have a behavior we want to codify in tests. I'm investigating. Maybe the thing to do is to add a red test that is intentionally broken and make sure we fix it. Alright, so t.run can compare against non-symmetric. This is testing the compare. That's not really what I care about. This is t.run. Comparisons are correct with respect to symmetry. Right? So, where did checker go? It's in... debug, test data. Ew, look at those file permissions. That's the wrong command. 6, 7. What is this? Read, write, execute is a 7. Read is 4, so 755. I accidentally changed the permissions on the directory and not the PNG file, which meant I couldn't list it. But yeah, read, write, read, read. Good. Clean raw data files should be great, but not executable. Durr. So there's a checkerboard pattern in a different package. I don't want to reference that file from this package. So either I move it to some kind of parent package that they both can reference, or I move it, or I copy it to this package too. Now normally you wouldn't want to copy things because if you change one you'd have to remember to change the other, but I don't want changes to it to propagate to all the tests. I want it to propagate just to the tests that are reading that file. So let's copy it. It's under debug, test data checker. Oh. So now, some image is actually image.decode. Test data. Returns an error, potentially. Test data is just os.open. Test data slash checker 0 PNG. That also returns an error. Oh, yeah, we don't care about the decode config. If error not nil, you got fatal F. Couldn't open this file. Like that. Except it's not a test failure, it's a test bug, so I prefer to panic. Error F. And then here, couldn't decode image file path. Use that before. Image file path. Right. We don't need to define what a red is or draw the thing. The expected file is just checker, right? And then if it is empty, fail. Just so we can check that we're actually properly failing. Okay, is there a way to tell it to decode it as a certain type? Maybe not. So we will have to do the draw. Draw to our GBA image. Some image.bounds. From some image at the default point with a draw source operation. RGBA image. Image.new RGBA image.rect of some image. Oh, just give it some image.bounds. Right. So now here, maybe that works. Okay, so it was empty, which is what we expect. So that's saying that when we call should look like file and we give it a legit PNG image, it does match what we see on disk. That's is that the test I want? Cause like it should look like. Like, this is just vanilla Golang, don't use any of our utilities. Load this file. Then redraw it as a RGBA. Yeah. I'm gonna break this and then commit it and then fix it and commit it. Test. Check that should look like file. Compares should look like file uses a correct pixel comparison. Oh, with respect to symmetries. You know, and then we get to green. Yeah. Make tests pass. Alright, so then now we can refactor because our tests are passing, so we can check that we haven't changed anything observable. And here we're gonna say, do I have a load an RGBA from a ping file helper? If not, let's add one. Be right back. We probably have this helper somewhere. Like, this isn't the first time we're doing this. We have a similar thing that looks like in texture test. Huh. This is really given an image of image file path, upload texture from image. Yeah. This is already importing render test. So if render test what is that? Why is this in package testing? I don't think it should be. It does not belong there. This is a test, not a test utility. This is a render test. Render test. Pardon me. This tests. Yeah, okay. So, committed. Clean. Move test file into test go file instead of in testing utilities. Okay, where were we? We were trying to write a test in here. And we were like, well, when we load a image to get an RGBA, don't we do that other places? And we were saying this is really like given a RGBA image, then upload texture from image and return it. Now, I'm not sure this should really belongs in the debug package so much as the render test package, or even the render package, right? Upload texture from image. Where else do we call text image 2D? In dictionary. What?
There were hard times ahead for the people of planet Peninsula.
Why is there .darwin make?
Networks of space and their eyes were open. But still, they were blind.
GB dot, sorry, dash MI. Huh? What's GB? Right. macOS command reference. Not here. Dash MI. Maybe Xcode command reference? No? When was this made? Probably since, you know, 2012.
Their eyes were open. But still, they were blind.
Sprite. This isn't a make file, this is a script. What did the thing look like at this point? What is this? Workspace.gb. Eh. Workspace.gb. Aha! Okay, so it was a config file for an old build tool 13 years ago. Okay. So, what, I guess, what does -mi mean for this? -i. Install build packages and commands in Go root. Okay. Use makefiles. What is this? I don't have an example anymore. What is this? Okay, so the last commit was on Sunday, March 31st, 2013. The last, like, upstream commit. So that was nearly more than a year ago. Or a year before the... Okay, so make.darwin is really just craft. It runs some no longer... Well, I don't know if it's no longer used. The Chosen One more than 14 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a while. But yeah, that's kind of like par for the course with this project. Most of it got written a long time ago. But it looks like GB is no longer like a tool that is used. The last commit to it was 13 years ago. And I've never heard of it, but it's also serving a purpose of what Go Build already does. So I don't think this has anything in it that we really need to keep. So yeah, copy the test binary into some .app. Copy the shared library in. Copy recursively some canned data. So I think we can remove that. Remove old build file for... Old thing is old and not used. We have better things right now. Alright, but going back to this, upload texture from image. That's like something that would be generally useful. We only call text image 2D in GUI-dictionary.go, which makes me think about, well, what the heck is in Sprite? And shared Sprite for that matter. There's a texture manager, or a sprite manager I should say. Oi. It's doing the same, like, fan out to a group of Go routines that I don't like from Haunts. So this is a way to get the pixel data. Oh, we call build 2D bitmaps because why not? I want to see how many levels of detail it's talking about. Oh, it builds all the levels. All the levels. Decimating is the wrong word. This means to reduce by a factor of 10 to a tenth. They're having. Okay, so build 2D bitmaps. Under the hood, it's this pixel data that is the part I'm thinking about. Getting this image. Well, here's a question. Let's say I do a text image 2D. GL RGBA. RGBA. This is loading it as each component is an int. I think. I always, pardon me, yeah. It's never exactly clear in answering the question I care about, which is how is the data packed when I for each of these. Specifies the type for data, right? But does that mean each pixel is one GLU unsigned byte, or does it mean that each component of each pixel is one GLU unsigned byte? I think it's the latter. In which case, that's big pixels. It says GLU int here, but it means GL int. And then we have to look at this to see what they mean. So there's a 32-bit integer for each component? Yeah. Okay. So when we pass in int to this, that's saying that we've got 32 bits for R, 32 bits for G, 32 bits for B, and 32 bits for A. Which doesn't seem right. Let me note this. Bug. Glop sprite sheetgo is using gl.int for the type when calling build duty bitmaps. I did not expect such wide values. 32 bits per color component. Eh. Okay. So compose. Whatever. So we make an RGB A for the given rectangle size. And we grab the .pix value out of it. Now, four bytes between, pardon me, 4 bytes times the width of a row between vertically adjacent pixels. So each pixel is 4 bytes. Which is what we're doing here, but not what we're doing over here. We should be getting pixel data from an image RGBA, which stores each pixel in 4 bytes. (32 bits). But gl.int means each component is 32 bits. AKA, hey Sneaky Donkey, how's it going? (128 bits). Yeah. We. Oh. The company you joined is not as good as you hoped. Oh my. Well, it's sorry to hear that your new spot is not as good. Um, I'm doing okay. Just trying to get back in the swing of things after the holidays and that. We're looking at why the textures aren't loading properly in the editor panel still. And I'm trying to like break the problem down into smaller pieces. Like, are we actually comparing things properly? Are we loading things properly? Are we uploading them to the GPU properly? Etc. Etc. Um, question: what do we do in haunts? In haunts, we'd probably also call get 2D maps. You're Canadian, right? Yes, I am Canadian. Yeah, see here we certainly do a gl.byte. It's LT. A LOS texture. There must be a better way. Yeah, there is. Presumably. Ooh. Ew. Finalizer. Okay, so sure, this is probably broken, but for now, do we want to coalesce the calls to build 2D maps and text image 2D? I really don't see why we should have so many calls to the same thing. Oh, okay. It's the make error texture. This should just be called like texture error texture.go. So now I'm thinking like, why aren't we loading the error texture in the same way we do the other textures? Maybe. I'm sure I'll deal with that if I need to, but right now I don't think I need to. So, yes, it's weird to build 2D maps over GLint. Did I change that? Yeah, that's wrong. This was correct. Do you work with other developers in a team, or have you? I'm working alone right now. I have worked with other developers on teams before, for most of my career. I think this is actually my first kind of like solo foray. Okay, before we get too deep in the rabbit hole here, let me just do this. Invite. Okay, test pass. So we don't have a test that really works, exercises this. So not what we want for something that would presumably be important. But if we're going to fix it, that's how we're going to fix it, is we're going to write a test that exercises it. Sprite sheet.go calls GLU build 2D maps, but and uses, well, passes gl.int as the type parameter. But it should asterisk be gl unsigned byte, because the data is coming from image.rgba, which uses 1 byte per component. Right? There. 13. Yeah, okay. To do and sprite sheet docs bug about pixel format, pixel data type, and build 2D net apps. Okay. That's tracked, we don't have to worry about it right now. So let's look at this. We don't need that. Render test should look like file. It should be correct. Yeah, it should be correct. So I'm going to say that this is that. I was considering, do we want a helper for loading image data from a file? No. So I'm going to say this is done. So given a texture should work. Some guys at work give code review comments that ask for changes that would improve the code, but the return is lower than the cost of improving it. What would you do? That speaks to a like a culture thing. Like everybody's got their own kind of comfort spot for how important it is to follow the coding guidelines or follow the best practices or follow solid principles or, you know, do the kind of non-functional how much they care about the non-functional requirements. It should be testable, it should be readable, that kind of thing. Everybody's got a different kind of space where they naturally gravitate to. If you're going to be working on a team, if it's a small team, just talk. Just be in the same room, have a conversation with a human. That is how to decide like what should make sense going forward, so it's not like a frictional thing. If you have a large team, I'm talking like 50 plus people, you want to codify your rules. Everybody's got their own spot where they naturally gravitate towards. The project has to pick a spot, document what that spot is, and say this is the thing to refer to when maybe we should invest in this change, maybe we shouldn't. If that makes sense. So yeah, if it's a small team, I would talk to them face to face and be like, I don't think this is gonna be a good return. Should we spend time on this? How do we want to organize spending time on things like this going forward? Let's just talk. But if it's a big team, you can't really just have an in-person conversation with everyone. So codifying it in a document is kind of the more scalable way to do it. But it's a lot harder to write a document that describes it than it is to just talk with somebody. Does that help? So here, I'm not super convinced that this works the way I want it to. Namely, it might improperly mark things as opaque when it shouldn't, or, you know, load things upside down. You see it the same way? Yeah. Yeah, don't underestimate the power of just a conversation with someone. It's even if it's over like video, the kind of information bandwidth is actually really, really high, so you can take advantage of that. Just because humans are used to talking to humans. You told them that the return, you didn't think the return justifies the cost? Yeah. And maybe they pushed back, or... If it's just I think it does, so do it. That's not really them conversing, that's them dictating. So maybe, you know, pick your battles or whatever, but try to understand and get on the same page with them as to what the return is, and what kind of return it is, right? If it's like, rename these variables, I can't read this, If it's throwaway code, then that's probably not going to return value. If it's a library that everyone's going to be using and looking at the source, it might return value. You know, maybe it's just a different horizon that they're considering. But yeah. And you don't have to agree right out of the gate with everyone each time. Certainly, arguing back and forth on a change about whether it's justified uses resources itself. So, if you are gonna kind of discuss that, try to keep a perspective of what should happen in general, just so that time doesn't disappear into the ether and you have to have the same conversations the next code review. But yeah, code review for me was always a little bit touchy. Like, I never liked it. But yeah, it's sometimes you have to because of Sarbanes-Oxley. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense because there's just such disparate kind of thoughts and ideas on the team, so you need somebody to like kind of guide people towards the same thing. But I've never enjoyed the process of like I don't know, getting bogged down in the details of some things and yeah, having something that works for me, but then I pitch it over the fence and it's like, no, this is crap. Kind of feels bad. But yeah. While describing and comparing the value of the current solution with the proposed better solution, we spent a lot of time. So one can deny the service of project by just making a lot of good suggestions that cost more than they return. Yeah, no, it's very true. Can I blame someone giving good suggestions that are just not economic? I think, you know, it comes with experience, but the reviewer's job is to also avoid setting you off to a wheel spinning time, right? When they make their suggestion, they should understand if it's going to give that good return or not. And if they think about it and they do think it does, they should have some reasoning that justifies it, right? Maybe they won't include the reasoning in their initial comment, but certainly if you ask them for an explanation as to why, hopefully they can justify it. And if they can't justify it, then it sounds kind of just what's the word? Subjective, right? It's just somebody's opinion, somebody's preference. Which may or may not be okay on your team, right? Like, some teams are formed around kind of team leads that you just do what they prefer and everybody does that, and that's just how things work. I don't want to be on a team like that, but that's sometimes what you gotta do. Some stuff you just changed. Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to change than it is to push back, even though it shouldn't matter. While the changes were uneconomic, explaining that would have been even more uneconomic. Exactly, yeah. So, I've yet to find a particularly good code review tool or process, but it's kind of what we're stuck with. And it does mean you got to do things like, yeah, I'll change it. I don't think we should change it, but it's not a big deal one way or the other, so I'll just change it, because that's the quick way to getting things done. Doesn't feel good, but get stuff done. Speaking of getting stuff done, I was thinking about the given a texture helper. If I want to make sure that given a texture actually doesn't load the thing flipped or with broken opacity. So I'm going to write a test that says, given a texture of the like checkerboard pattern, actually blit it across some geometry and then take a screenshot through our other debug utilities. And then compare that to what we'd expect. Yeah, okay. So we're going to add a red test. Test texture debugging. Textures should match the underlying image. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but sometimes, the really, really, really obvious thing is exactly what you should be testing. Like, who can argue that the texture should or shouldn't match the underlying image? Checker texture is given a texture checker 0 pin okay. Do I have a good way of splatting it across some geometry? Like, I know I do it in here. You build up some vertices. I don't think we'll bother with the indices part, but we will do like a gen buffer, bind it, buffer data. Oh, that'll need a shader too. Oh, get me a call. Just a second. I don't think I have a TELUS account, but that guy thought I did. Anyways, Well, we're in red mode, so we can commit heresy. So let's just do that. So we'll do something like that. Gen buffer. We're gonna have to do this on a render thread. Render test with GL. Do all the things. So vertex buffer bind. Buffer the data. So buffer for the array buffer. The how do GL buffer? Okay. This is 4? No. We need 2 triangles to make a square. That means 6. In bytes. Okay. So len of square verts times how much is each vertex going to be? Okay, what is square verts going to be first? It's going to be a slice of float, slice of we set up the type of the data somewhere, right? Or do we just assume that yeah, vertex pointer. So we don't need to do this. We will need to do that. Or is there an easier way? I mean, I don't know. I'll be right back. So when I enable client state for GL vertex array, what does that do? It's saying that, hey GL, look client side for something, namely what we give you as the cap. Vertex array. So you can define vertex data, an array of vertex data, in terms of some buffer. And if you pass nil, it'll use the buffer that's bound. So we don't need to do this, we just need to do this and pass the buffer. Yeah. Vertex pointer, and then draw elements. But this is a slice of... I mean, we can just use the whole visible canvas, right? So, like, from -1, -1 to 1, -1, to 1, 1, to -1, 1. This will be a slice of int. Because why not? We'll make it 32 bits so that we know it's the 8 bytes per. Is that right? 42 bits, 4 bytes per. But there's 2 values, so that. Is there a size of in Golang? I'm trying to remember if there's a size of. Yeah. I don't like either of these. I don't want to say unsafe, and I don't want to use reflection. But, I mean, I guess it makes sense that you'd need reflection. Okay, so we don't need buffer data though. We just need gl dot vertex pointer. A size, a type, a stride, and a pointer. So the size is 64. Is it in bytes? Oh, it doesn't tell me. 2, 3, or 4. Number of coordinates per vertex. there's 2 coordinates per vertex. Type of each coordinate in the array. Int. Byte offset between consecutive vertices. Let's not make it a slice of slice. Probably gonna need an unsafe pointer. Oh, we're using unsafe anyways, eh? I don't know about this one, but we'll set it up like this for now. And then GL dot draw elements. Right? Draw elements. GL triangles. Actually, this is a quad, right? Let's do it this way too. So, bottom left. For some reason I want to go bottom right. So, right, bottom. Top right. Top left. I think that's okay. I'm sure we'll see a complaint if it's not. Pardon me. I mean, let's just do a GL quad. One of them. Oh, we need indices. Triangles. I'm going to use triangles because I think the rest of it is deprecated in later versions of OpenGL. And we can just reference things by way of indices. Let's do inside ints. Indices is a slice of URIN32. And we're going to go 0 to 1 to 2, and then from here to there, then here to there to there. That seems wonky. From here to there to there. And then here to there to there. I think that's better. So triangles, there are 2 triangles to render. There are indices of type unsigned int and they're in square indices. Enter. Okay. So I should be able to screenshot. This has to be GL for test. Give it a 50 by 50. 64 by 64.
Thank you.
I need to say how to texture this though. And that's done by way of some weird thing. I don't know. We bind that texture after enabling it. There. Fragments will get textured according to the checkerboard. Set up geometry for 2 triangles that cover the full viewport. What are the... You might need to do like a viewport transform here. Viewport. What am I thinking here? I'm thinking GL dot data matrix. Matrix mode. This one. Is it model? Is it projection matrix or is it projection? Without the matrix, because why not? Defer geo.pop matrix. Oh, yeah, about that.
Hey kids! Boy oh boy, are we gonna have some big fun today!
Now, here comes the music.
So, set the mode to model view, push the matrix, which saves whatever happened to be beforehand. We will defer setting back to model view and popping, but we will overwrite the current model view matrix with the identity matrix. Then do the same thing for projection. Push it, defer setting and popping it, and then load identity. So now we're in like normalized device coordinates, so our -1, +1 vertices are all well and good. Yeah. Then we take a dump. That image RGBA should be This is a pain. This takes a render job. Sorry, a render job is a function of render queue state. So after we queue it, queue.purge, and then we can look at dump. So where the image.rgba. If dump is nil, panic. Dump was set. But here we have an image RGBA for dump, and we have a file path, test data checker 0pin. Decode expected file. Expected image file is some error. Is os.open just data checker 0png freak out. Couldn't image.decode that file path. Now, do image compare. Compare with threshold. Some bytes. Images are within threshold. We might want to export this. Image bytes, maybe. Just images. Result is images are within threshold. Expected image and the dump. Threshold of default. But this is from render test. And then if result not equal to true, t dot fatal f image mismatch. We might want a better failure message than that, but for now we shall do that. And we need to set up the shaders too. Do that load program. Do that program. Alright. SD shaders, register shader. Ooh. Did I? No. Okay. Error wasn't already colon equal defined, so I can make it look like that. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Ooh, debug shaders. I'd be surprised if it worked. Yeah. Type must be a pointer, a slice, a uint pointer, or nil. I think that means we don't say unsafe dot pointer of. Let me just do this. This feels wild, but it's true. So there's an image mismatch. What? Interesting. Okay. 1284. .504. So that's an error code from OpenGL. And if we look in user include gl.h and look for OX 504, OX 0504, stack underflow. Which means we pop matrixed the wrong thing. Right. But I thought I did that right. Did we do it wrong in here? Oh. we should do not such dire things. But we should use $64 here. Alright, so left is -64. Right is, sorry, left is 0. Right is 64. Bottom is 0. Top is 64. Is that true, or is this flipped? I don't know. Left bottom. Bottom. Right. Top. Left. Top. Let's actually make them all unsigned. Because why not? $12.84. Same error code. Stack underflow. I want more information out of this. This didn't happen. Right? And so this must have ran. This should give us the thing. We'll have to redraw it as a RGB8. Well, at least it's red. It's png.encode the dump to a file. The file is List dot create some temp file PNG. I just want to look at it right now. Fear not nil, panic. Sad face. Where's that? If they're not nil. Panic. Sad pandas. But always fatal mismatch, okay. Okay, so it's blackened pixels. So did I write the shader correctly? And did I call the shader correctly with draw elements? We may never know. I need to call GL text stuff. I think I need to call this. Okay, I think my brain's about melted today. But we're making progress because I think if we can show that this is true, we can move on to proving other parts of the problem are not a problem. But until we get this working, I don't trust it. So hopefully we can work on that tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again next time.